When we get together as friends and talk about old times, the thing that's most memorable is actually a defeat. It's not a victory. And it was the 1991, what proved to be the New York State championship basketball game. And we led the entire game. We were playing Syracuse-Henniger. We never trailed in the game until right at the very end with 3 seconds left. Lazarus Sims threw the ball over to Gilbert Spites in the corner, and he hit a jump shot as the clock expired, and we lost by 1 point. And we loved each other. We were brothers. Those guys are still my brothers. But I remember going back in the locker room afterwards and Coach Marchese telling us, and it was no disrespect to Gilbert Spites, but he said, most likely for that kid, that's going to be the highlight of his life. And for you guys, win or lose, this is not going to be the highlight of your life. The highlights of your life are to come. So get over this and move on. And it's always stuck with me. He was right. I still wish we'd won the game, but winning or losing that game didn't impact the trajectory of my life. And sometimes losing teaches you the best lesson.
We went to Penn State, big trip. We were staying in a former runner, Mr. Bradley knows everybody. So a former runner's sister was at Penn State, and she had a sorority, and they said we could stay there. And we could stay on the ground, we could camp out, so we didn't have to pay for a hotel or anything. So we went to Penn State, and we were all seniors and juniors. We had a couple freshmen that had come up to varsity, and he said, okay, go out, enjoy the campus, have a good time. And so we went out, and he goes, but you got to be back by 10:30. 10:30 is curfew. We got separated. I was the captain of the team and couldn't find like 3 or 4 other guys on the team. They just wandered off. And I said, well, we're going to stay right here. This is where we were originally. We're going to stay right here. And we stayed, and it got to be 10:20, and 10:25, and 10:35, and I was like, oh man. I said, we got to go back. I said, we're just going to have to say we got separated. So we go back, and we come in, and as I'm walking up the stairs, there's Mr. Bradley correcting English papers, and he said, did people forget what 10:30 was? I said, well, we were waiting for these 2 other guys that got separated. He goes, they've been here since 10:15. They knew what time it was. He goes, we'll talk about this later. So we went into the thing. We knew we were in trouble. And went out the next day, ran a great race. I think we finished second in a very large invitational, and drove home. On Monday morning, we got together for practice, and Mr. Bryce said, okay, the 5 guys who didn't know what curfew was, mile repeats after the practice. So we're going to run a practice, and they're going to run mile repeats. And what I took from that was there's a difference between there's a difference between punishment and discipline. We didn't feel we were being punished. He had a rule. The rule was broken, and there was discipline. And I've taken that throughout my entire life with me. Is that you can set it, you can have a standard, and you can stand by it, and you can be firm and fair. And that's what it taught me. And I'll tell you this: the 2 or 3 guys that had come back early, they ran the mile repeats with us, and that I took as you're a team, and those guys I still keep in contact with them. They're still some of my best friends.
I was able to be part of a lot of successful teams at McQuaid, and I've remained pretty close to many of my teammates. And I think the interesting thing is when we get together and reminisce and kind of talk about our times at McQuaid, it's not necessarily the wins and the losses or specific games. I think the things that we really focus on are our everyday experiences. Whether that be kind of road trips or being on the bus to and from games, thinking about getting up early on Sunday and going to practice before they even turn the heat of the building on. So I think those experiences is what really helped build the camaraderie that led to our success, not the other way around.
A lot of people would say, okay, go to your number one most positive experience, but I'll tell you that losing the sectional finals in basketball my senior year to Greece Arcadia is vivid still. I've watched that videotape over and over again, and 3 minutes and 41 seconds to go in the game, we're still winning. And somehow we managed to lose that game every time I watch it. But I remember that, and I also, I took that to the next season, which was baseball. And as a senior, I didn't want to go out second place. Nobody really remembers the second place team. So when I remember walking into Silver Stadium for the sectional final baseball game, we were a pretty good team. At the time, we were the #1 winning team in the history of McQuaid. We were 22-4. And I remember taking batting practice here at the school before heading over to Silver Stadium. And we walked into Silver Stadium, everybody with metal cleats on, and it's concrete, so you can imagine it's sort of military sound to it. And some parents from the Hilton team, that we were playing Hilton in the finals, kind of gently asked us as we're walking into Silver Stadium, "You boys from that Catholic school?" And we looked up and said, "Yes, sir." And one of them said, "You better start praying." And we just sort of looked at him and just kept walking. We didn't say anything, but we were winning 8-0 after the first inning. So I mean, we won 12-0, and I felt almost bad for that team. But they lit a fire they really didn't have to light, because going out of second place after that day wasn't going to happen.